Hello, I'm Rachel from Douentza Garden in Ireland, and today I'm going to move a peony rose. I'm also going to show you how to divide a herbaceous peony and how to plant herbaceous peonies, intersectional peonies and tree peonies, because they all need to be planted at slightly different depths. Now, there's a general myth out there that you shouldn't ever move a herbaceous peony, that if you do it'll die or it'll fail to flower or I don't know, self-combust. But I'm here to tell you that if you do it correctly, you can indeed move and divide herbaceous peonies. Okay, let's see how it's done. In this video, I'm going to show you how to move and divide a herbaceous peony and also how to plant the different types. But before we begin, just a quick note on what the different types of peony are. And the first type is the herbaceous peony, or the perennial one. And the way you identify this is that it dies back completely in winter, leaving nothing except kind of soft stems above the earth that can be cut back in spring. The second type of peony is a cross between the herbaceous peony and the tree peony, and it's known as intersectional. You'll also find these sold as ito hybrids, but the thing to remember with them is that they have woody stems. Now, the tree peony also has woody stems, but you'll probably know if you have an intersectional one in your garden because they cost a lot and you probably paid a lot of money for it. And the third type of peony is the tree peony. Now, these may be grafted or ungrafted, but in any case they produce woody stems. The woody stems may be a single one that comes up, or it may be multiple woody stems all starting from the one point in the ground. So now that we've got that straight, we're going to move a herbaceous peony. And one thing is interesting to note. Normally with perennials, you need to lift and divide them every 2 to 3 years to maintain the vigour of the plant and generally for the plant's health. With peonies, you don't need to do this. You can move and you can divide peonies, but you're doing it for yourself really, not for the plant's health. Okay, let's check out this peony that needs moving. The time to move herbaceous peonies is between October and February, when the plant is dormant. And here is the herbaceous peony that I want to move. Now, as you can see, it's completely obscured by different bushes and things. And when I originally planted it in this position, it was in full sun. And as we know, herbaceous peonies certainly need full sun in order to flower well. So this guy needs to be moved. Now, it's going to be tricky because we have various trees and things near it, but around we go. The first thing you need to do is to dig all around the root ball of your peony. And in this case, it's quite difficult because we've got tree roots and all sorts in here. But we need to loosen the roots so we can lift the thing up. Now, this is quite difficult because peonies have big roots, and as likely as not, you're going to end up breaking a piece of your peony taproot by lifting it up. But there's nothing really you can do about this, and the peony should go on to flower and do well. Now, just take your time with this job. I know I said you'll probably end up breaking a bit of the peony root, but the idea is to get as much of it out as possible unbroken. So that means digging round and not being in a hurry. It's actually coming up. I feared that this was going to be a worse job than it is. So I think this is lucky. Okay, I'm going to try and lift the plant now. I hear a little bit of tearing, but let's hope it's nothing too much. Okay, and here we go. And here is my peony, and I actually can't believe how well that went. I was dreading this job. Now I have broken some bits of tuber, which you can see here, and from the fact that these tubers or roots are severed a bit. But let's go and blast some water on this and see what we've got. And right here is the spot where I'm going to replant this lovely peony. So the first thing I'm going to do is to just cut off all of the stems, which would go dormant in winter anyway. So I've used a hose to blast off as much soil as I can. And with this clump, the most important thing is these eyes here. Can you see? There. And if I just turn here, can you see that one there? These white or red bits that are jutting up. Now, there are also some that are really small, which I don't know if you can see over here, because it's the beginning of October. If you were doing this job a little bit later, I guess these would be more advanced. The eyes would be more advanced and you'd see them better. But the eyes are what are all important. Now, what happened when I was digging this up is that certain pieces just naturally broke off, like this one here. And actually we can see that this one has an eye here, and just around the back here we have two eyes that are just coming. When you divide your peony, you must divide it with a minimum of 3 eyes if you want any chance of it flowering again next year. A minimum of 3 eyes, some tubers and some roots. The roots are very important. And for example, we have a very silly piece that broke off of its own accord. And if you look carefully, there's an eye here. There may be some more eyes coming here, but there's no root. So this piece will do nothing. And very often with peonies, you find that there's an overhanging piece that has very few roots. And if you divide that off, then it'll probably just die. An eye is not enough on its own. As I mentioned, for a peony to flower again next year, you need a minimum of 3 eyes, but probably 5 or 8 eyes is much better. So try and divide your peonies as big as you can, let's just say. So for example, I have a lot of eyes on this side of the peony, and I have fewer over here, although I do have some. So to have the best chance of flowering again next year, I would actually not divide this peony in more than 2 pieces, and I would probably divide it down the middle here, making sure that both sections have at least 5 eyes and some tuber and some root. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to divide this peony any further. I'm going to just replant it as it is. Now I have a few natural divisions here, and this one has 3 eyes, so that may actually flower next year. We will plant that somewhere else. And this one here, it has root, it has tuber, it has 1 very small eye. It won't flower next year, but I'll put it somewhere in the ground, and over time it'll bulk up and get going. So what we're going to do now is to replant this big peony clump in a position where it gets lots of sun, so that hopefully next year it will reward me with lots and lots of beautiful flowers. Okay, so time to dig a nice hole to replant this peony. And now I just position my peony in. The hole is plenty wide, so the next thing we need to consider is how deep to plant this peony. Planting depth differs depending on what type of peony you have. If you're planting a tree peony, then you should plant it at least 3 inches deep, 3 inches from the top of the eye. If you're planting an intersectional peony or a herbaceous peony like I'm doing here, then the planting depth is different. You want to plant it so that you've got 1 inch above the dormant eye. If you plant the herbaceous peony deeper than that, what will happen is it won't flower, or maybe it'll take several years to flower while it struggles to get to the surface. So we need to get this right. So here I'm laying a plank across the hole, so this marks the depth, and I will just work out how deep the eyes are going to be, and that's far too deep. So what I need to do now is just put some earth underneath my peony. And with peonies, it's nice to give them a good start with a bit of compost. So I put a bit of compost and ordinary soil in the hole, removing any stones, and just mix it all together like that, raising the level. And the fact that I've loosened the soil underneath the peony is good, because it just means it can expand more easily. Now let's try that depth again. And that, let's see, looks a bit high, but we will see. Here's my very ugly plank, and there's there's the eye there, and it's 1 inch below. So in this case, the soil level is going to be 1 inch above this eye and this one here. Now obviously in a clump like this there are a couple of eyes that are going to be a little bit above or a little bit below, but I think probably we've managed to get this depth right. And here I'm just going to backfill with some of my earth. And there we have it. There's my peony replanted in a good position with the best of everything. And finally, the peony needs a good watering in. So there, that's how you do it. That's how you move a herbaceous peony, how you divide it, and also the different planting depths for herbaceous, intersectional and tree peonies. Just remember, move herbaceous peonies between October and February, and don't divide them too small. A minimum of 3 eyes to have any chance of flowering the following year, but preferably 5 or 8. And yeah, I'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.